2023 Six Nations is almost upon us. I'm going to have a preview of this weekend's fixtures later on in the week once we have all the teams out. This is going to be more of a high-level overview of where each of the teams stand coming into the tournament. This is a Rugby World Cup year, so that's going to be in the background of everything we see as well. There's going to be a lot of talk of that, and coaches will deny it, but some of the stuff that they do during the Six Nations will have that in mind as well. Wales and England have changed their coaches since last year with that Rugby World Cup in mind as well. But there's also a trophy up for grabs. Teams are going to want to win that. So let's jump in with our first team. So we're going to go in reversed order from where teams finished last year. So our first team is Italy. Coach is Kieran Crowley. He's been there since May 2021, I think. Captain is Michel Lamaro. So he's really come on not just only as a player, but as a captain as well. So expect to see him really lead his team this year. The world ranking is 12. Last year, they finished 6th. In the last 5 Six Nations tournaments, they finished 6th every time as well. Their odds to win this year is 1,000 to 1. I took the odds from just a website, so I don't know whether it's influenced by what country it's from and who's betting and that kind of stuff. Generally, if it's from a European side of things, England and Ireland would be higher up in the odds, just because they're probably taking it from an English or an Irish bookmaker. But fixtures for Italy this year then. So they start out with France at home. That would be a huge shock if they were to win that. Then England away, so fairly tough first couple of rounds. Then it doesn't get any easier to have Ireland at home as well. Wales at home in the second last week. That's the team that they beat last year for that first win that they've had in I don't know how many years in the tournament. Like going back the last 5 years is pretty much the only win that they've had. And then finishing off with Scotland away. So those last 2 games, they would be especially targeting, I feel, to try and pick up at least one win this year. In terms of their squad, then we'll have a quick look. So with the forwards, we have the likes of Cancellieri, Ferrari, Fischetti, Bigi there, Zani, all been to the fore for them recently. Canone there as well. Rusa, obviously Lamaro, Negri. So they got a nice core to the squad who have a decent amount of caps. But then they've got some new guys coming in. Norsera and Rizzoli, props from Parma. And then we have Spanish, who I don't know anything about. He plays, the club he plays for is I think in the Italian top 10, which is the domestic league over there, but I don't know much about him. We then have Manfredi from Zebre, possible new cap there as well. Zebre, they're rock bottom of the URC, but they have been producing some performances this year where they've run teams close, including Leinster on the opening weekend of the season. So there are decent players there, but the bulk of the team is coming from Benetton. Into the backs as well. So we have Varney from Gloucester and Tommaso Allen from Quins. Possible halfback combination there. But then you do have the Ray as well from Benetton, who might see some game time. Brex is kind of a bit of a leader now in that back line. And we have, the likes of Bruno. Bruno's been on really good form for Zebre of late, getting over the try line as well. So, you might see some players that haven't featured previously in the Six Nations for Italy, getting some game time as well. It looks like kind of a lot of the players have not a huge amount of caps for them, so that it is really building a team at the minute there. They are without the likes of Garbisi and who is it? Halafini, I think. They've got basically a few players who are out because of injury, and then Monty Ione he's gone back to Australia with the Melbourne Rebels, so he's unavailable for selection as well. So in terms of where are Italy and what would they be looking for at the tournament? So basically, I would say that their aim is to get that one win, and as I said, the games that they would probably target is home to Wales and away to Scotland are probably the two most likely for them to get the win. But seeing the way Benetton have played at home this year in the URC, France and Ireland, it's not beyond the stretches of imagination that they could actually cause a big upset in one of those two as well. Now, next team up is Wales. So Warren Gatland's return is going to be the big headline for them. Captain is Ken Owens, so real stalwart there. World ranking 9th. Last year they finished 5th. The last 5 Six Nations, they finished 2nd winners, 5th winners, and then 5th. So going by that pattern, they should be winners this year. Their odds are 12-1 to start out home to Ireland. That's like, for me as an Ireland fan, that's the game I'm dreading, because Gatland at home against Ireland, he's just going to pick something out of the way we play, and deliver that win that everybody's looking for from Wales. And then Ireland's like Six Nations suddenly could be over in the first couple of rounds if they lose to France as well. So that's big trepidation for me, but a big G up for Wales, because it's the homecoming of Gatland there. Then they're away to Scotland, home to England, and then away days at Italy and France to finish as well for them. So they could really, like those first couple of rounds, if they pick up a couple of wins there, suddenly they're in the mix for the tournament. That England game becomes a massive game for them then. And then after that, if you're still in the mix after that, and anything can happen, then the players will believe now that Gatland is back there, that it's possible for them to win this tournament. Whereas under Pivac, I'm not sure. People would obviously talk about having the belief, but not sure whether they really would have it. Into the squad then. So here's your forwards. So we got the likes of stalwarts there, like Wyn Jones is there. Alan Wyn Jones also brought back into the squad. Hasn't been he does produce for Wales, but he hasn't really been producing that great performance for Ospreys, I have to say. Got Toby Faletau, moved to Cardiff this year. That guy has been out of this world for them, so expecting more great things from him. Tipperick for Ospreys is coming into decent form as well. Then, you've got a lot of players there, on kind of 1 to 10 caps who could come in and, get themselves in the frame for the Rugby World Cup as well. You got the likes of, Rhys Davies from Ospreys could make his Wales debut here. Teddy Williams as well, another one possibly on debut. And into the backs then, you've got kind of a scrum half, you got Tomas Williams Reece Webb there as well. Kind of going to be interesting to see how those two go in terms of who's going to be the starting nine for them. Dan Bigger is going to be a big player for them, because I think if you take him out of the team, the other 10s, they still have a lot to prove at this level. We then have the likes of Kieran Williams and Mason Grady looking for possible debuts. Rio Dyer, who's great form for the Dragons, got him that call up in the autumn. Could also, if he gets on, he's the kind of guy that could really set the tournament alight. But then you have the likes of Josh Adams is back in form. George North is playing some decent rugby. Reece Sama, he's always dangerous with his pace. Liam Williams as well, great stepper there. Lee Halfpenny is back too. It's almost like, Gatlin's back and we're turning back the clock with a lot of the squad as well. But don't forget that there are those younger players in behind them as well that can add to that too. In terms of like where the team are, like obviously the end of the PVAC era wasn't great for them. They were very kind of hit and miss with their performances, and felt like once they kind of got behind, it was hard for them to work their way back into games. But Gatlin will instill that belief in them. I expect them to be much harder to beat now with him there. We also have like the thing of Steve Phillips had to step down because there's a big furor on the WRU about things like sexism, and a lot of like people on the board have said like that they're not getting listened to in terms of the way that the union has to modernize, and things that have happened in the past, and kind of like it seems like a big old boys club in there where people will bring up things that someone has done, like there was talk of very inappropriate language being used towards women on the board and within the organization as well, and then the person not being properly punished, and it kind of trying to sweep it under the rug. He's finally stepped down, but it seems like there is a lot of work to do to sort it out. They're going to hope that the team performs on the field and kind of deflects the attention away from that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that he's they really ramped up the pressure on him this year, and they got him out, or this week, sorry, and last week, and got him out before the Six Nations kicked off, because it could have been very easy for them, beat Ireland and then everybody forgets about what's going on off the pitch. But luckily he's gone. But yeah, they need to do a lot to sort them out. In terms of the regions then, like the regions in the URC haven't been in the best of form, like Cardiff are the highest placed team, but like you got the likes of the Scarlets, Ospreys and Dragons all down towards the end of the table. Dragons at least have been, a bit kind of harder to beat this year than they used to be easy points in previous years, but they've hardened up a little bit. But, one thing that Gatland and Wales are able to do is to get their players to perform well above what they do for their teams in the URC. So expecting them in this tournament to be, a stumbling block for a lot of the favourite teams. Now, on to Scotland. So coach is Gregor Townsend. Captain is Jamie Ritchie. World ranking 7th. Last year they finished 4th. In the last 5 tournaments, they finished 3rd, 5th, 4th, 4th, and 4th. So, what's the bets on a 4th place finish again this year? Odds to win the whole thing are 20-1. The fixture list: England away. That's going to be a huge game for them. The Calcutta Cup. There, then Wales at home. So, they could really, again, kind of similar to Wales, is just get that win at the, in the first round. Say just get it. It'd be a big win for them. But if they can manage that, and then suddenly that game between them and Wales becomes even bigger, to get them, for them, really, I feel like getting into the top two would be a huge achievement. But if they can win those first two, that it's possible. Then they go away to Paris to face France. They're the only team in recent years to actually beat France over there. So won't hold as much fear for them as it maybe would for other teams. Then Ireland at home is going to be another huge game because both of them are in the same World Cup pool, and Ireland have had the wood over Scotland for a long, long time now. So getting that win, proving they can beat Ireland, could be huge for that World Cup. Then finally, last game against Italy. You might see a lot of players getting debuts there with, a view to maybe building some depth for the World Cup into the squad then. So have a lot of Glasgow players in there. Glasgow in the recent kind of the last month or so have been coming into form as well. Edinburgh earlier on in the season were the team that were doing really well in the URC, but now Glasgow are overtaking them and come into some nice form. You've got, the likes of Fraser Brown there, Matt Ferguson, Xander Ferguson, going to be big players for them. The Gray brothers there as well. Possibility, for the likes of Dave Cherry to really, show why he deserves more than the 8 caps that he already has. You got people like WP Nell. So it looks like a very experienced, forward group that they have. And even the players with kind of, you would call fringe players aren't coming in with just one cap or whatever. You've got a couple of uncapped players like Cameron Henderson from Leicester who could make his debut, but by and large, a lot of the players have 10 plus caps. So going to be fairly settled for them, I feel. Into the backs then we have the likes of Stuart Hogg. He got the captaincy taken off him, and he seems to be performing better since that happened. You got Chris Harris, great defensive centre, like Hugh Jones, Blair Kinghorn, who they tried at 10 in the autumn when Finn Russell wasn't picked. Kind of mixed reviews on that. To be generous to him, I think, with that. Then you do have Finn Russell in there as well, Ali Price, and then the likes of Van der Merwe. We've got no Darcy Graham available due to injury, but you do have some interesting players coming in. The likes of Ben Healy switched from Ireland to Scotland. You also have a couple of other uncapped players, Rory McConaughey and Stafford McDowell. Both could make their debuts here. You got Ollie Smith, who and Kyle Stain from Glasgow Warriors, both showing some decent form recently. Cameron Redpath from Bath, who could add to his caps as well. But then, I think for Scotland, as I said earlier, if they could get into that top two, that would be seen as a major step forward for them. The relationship, though, between Townsend and Russell is definitely going to be something that comes up at some stage during the Six Nations. It seems to happen every time the Scotland squad comes together and Russell is there. There seems to be something that happens that triggers some kind of reaction from Townsend because of it. And so, but if they can keep everything sweet there through the tournament, I think they're going to do maybe better than people expect them to. Then you've also got, as I said, Ben Healy switching from Ireland, the possibility of John Cooney, Ulster scrum half, also potentially switching. I think he's available from the middle of February or somewhere around there. So, and he's already talked, like Townsend's already said that he's talked to him about switching over, so you could maybe see him later on in the tournament as well. And then that whole thing with themselves and Ireland in the same Rugby World Cup pool, that makes that just a massive game for both teams, I feel. And they're going to want to show that they're progressing. Townsend is one of the coaches who's been under pressure recently because results have been up and down, so he's going to want to deliver this year. Now, on to next team, England. So coach Steve Borthwick. Eddie Jones got sacked at the end of the autumn there, and Borthwick comes in from Leicester. Captain is Owen Farrell. There's always a lot of talk about, why is Farrell the captain when, like, a lot of people feel he's not the best option at 12. But, the guy, he gets a lot of stick, but the guy still, more often than not, delivers for either Saracens or England as well. But he does tend to ship a lot of the blame when they're not playing well. World ranking is 5th. Last year they finished 3rd. The last 5 Six Nations they were 5th, 2nd, winners 5th and 3rd. So we're going to see whether it ticks up or ticks down this year. Odds 5-1 to win the whole thing. Fixtures at home against Scotland first, then Italy at home. So potentially a nice landing for Borthwick, although if they lose that first one, any kind of experimentation he was thinking of against Italy might go out the window. They have Wales away, then France at home and Ireland away. So if they, those first 3 games, that they can win them, then suddenly they're into almost a mini tournament for themselves, where they've got that France and the Ireland game are both going to be huge. The squad then, we've got the likes of Dane Coles, Ellis Genge, Jamie George, Ludlam, Sam Simmons, Mako Vunapola, his brother Billy isn't in this one, Kyle Sinclair, all kind of familiar faces. But then the likes of, Ben Curry from Sale, Johnny Hill as well, kind of benefiting from Sale's really good form this year. You've got, players like Bevan Rodd and David Ribbons only on a few caps who could make an impact as well. Jack Walker from Harlequins looking for a potential debut. His clubmate then, Alex Dombrandt, has been in decent form as well for Harlequins, so maybe he's going to push his case for inclusion for the Rugby World Cup. Into the backs then, you do have Farrell on 101 caps there. Then also the likes of Manu Tuilagi, 50 caps. Is he going to stay fit? Anthony Watson, on 50-odd caps as well. Ben Youngs, 121 caps. So lots of experience, but then you have kind of a big drop-off to the rest of those backs. You've got the likes of Marcus Smith there on 17 caps. He, though, seems to have taken to Test Rugby like a duck to water, so there's no problems with him. But then you do have, the likes of Ollie Hassel-Collins, who potential debut, if he does, that guy is electric. Could really see him lining up the tournament. You got Alex Mitchell just on one cap, Caden Murley uncapped as well, Finn Smith. So plenty of players there who potentially could make a name for themselves. You've got then Van Poortvliet at 9, who kind of struggled in the autumn as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him through the tournament. In terms of where they're going to finish and what's going to happen, well, they've sacked Eddie Jones. He's now gone to Australia. So you can almost guarantee that England and Australia are going to meet at some stage in that tournament, and it's going to be just this massive game between them, and who knows, maybe Eddie will put one over on them. But England's even when it's a bad England side, they're still tough to beat. Whereas this England side, they do have some really good young talent in there. There's obviously so they've got the likes of Maro Itoje in there as well, who's going to be like a big leader for them. As I said before, we've got no Billy Vunipola. We've got the questions about Owen Farrell as the captain, whether himself and Smith are the best 10-12 combination that they have available. The whole thing with Manitou Lagi at 13, is he going to stay fit for the tournament? Can Van Poortvliet adjust to test level and really find his feet there as well? If they can answer all of those questions, like, England are going to be a serious contender for the title this year. And Borthwick has shown with Leicester that he can really turn around a group of players very quickly as well. So don't be surprised if England are up there towards the end of the tournament. On to then Ireland. So obviously my hope for Ireland is that we're going to win the thing, but hopes are great, but let's see what's actually going to happen. Coach is Andy Farrell there. He's been put forward as the next Lions coach, but I'd love to see him go to the Lions, having led Ireland to our first semi-final or final in a Rugby World Cup. That would be great to see. But Johnny Sexton, captain, obviously he's got that thing with his cheekbone, which might limit his playing time. It's very hard with Sexton. There's always the thing that, no, he's definitely fit, he's definitely available, and then the game day will turn around, he's not fit and he's not available. So we'll see what happens through the tournament with that. But I think in terms of backups, you've got Ross Byrne there, and you've got young Crowley as well. So it would be actually nice to see them getting game time in big games to see what happens. World ranking is number 1. Whether they're going to be there at the end of the tournament, though, it's going to be hard to say, because if France take it again, France is so close to them, they're going to be world number 1, I feel. Last year, they finished second behind France. Last 5, they were winners, third, and then second. So, fairly consistent, finishing in the top 3. So missing out on that this year would be a big disappointment, but it's a Rugby World Cup year, and Ireland's form generally falls off a cliff on it. So we'll see. Odds are 11-8. They are the favourites with the bookies, but again, I think probably taken. I'm not sure where it came from. It might be somewhere like Paddy Power or something, which would have a bit of an Irish bias to it. Fixtures, that massive game starting off against Wales and Gatland. One thing I worry about with Ireland is our adaptability within games. Generally, if a team kind of figures something out against Ireland, it takes too long for Ireland to work out a way around what the other team are doing to then come back and win the game. They're fine after the game to be able to go away to the training paddock and work on it and figure something out there. But a lot of times, if Ireland go behind in the game, they find it very hard to come back over the top of a team. And it's something I think this team has been missing. I'm not saying they don't have the ability for it. It's just that they haven't produced it very often. Is a big comeback win. So maybe they're going to have to produce that against Wales on Saturday. Then they're home to France, another huge game for them as well. Possibly going to be facing France in the quarterfinal, hosts of the Rugby World Cup. So they're going to want to have that belief going in there that they can beat them whatever happens in that Wales game to start. Away to Italy is where you're probably going to see the likes of Crowley getting a start at 10, maybe Osborne getting a run out in the centres as well. Scotland away, you'd look at the fixture and think, oh, that's an easy one, because Ireland always beats Scotland, but because I really feel that Scotland are going to be targeting that game, so that's going to be fairly difficult. And then home to England to finish. If they have a trophy to play for at that stage, I think Ireland will probably do the business. If things have gone a little bit south, it's going to be a huge test of character for them. Into the squad then, you've got the likes of Philly Bealham, who's been in fantastic form for Connacht this year. Ty Byrne is there, like turnover machine. Jack Conan is really beginning to come into form as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can force his way into the starting team. But then you have like Doris there, who could be in the 8th shirt instead of him. Furlong hasn't played all that much this year, so it's going to be interesting to see whether he's going to be fit. Keane Healy there, huge experience. He's recently as well has switched from loose head to tight head, so it's going to be interesting to see where does he play. Ian Henderson, another hugely experienced guy who could really help the team out. You got then Peter O'Mahony, who was massive, down in New Zealand last year. Andrew Porter, I think he's one of the key players for Ireland in that pack. Like, you have to keep him fit. You got James Ryan there as well, coming back into some form, and then Josh van der Fleer, the World Player of the Year. And you don't have too many players who are going to be making debuts, but you do have players on that not that many caps. Joe McCarthy has been fairly decent for Leinster in the second row this season. Gavin Coombs kind of almost rehabilitated his reputation. Like, I think he got a bit of stick for his performance against, who was it, the All Blacks 15. Yeah, he didn't play great in that game, but he's been in great form for Munster. He's like, I could see him in a tight game being brought off the bench, and this guy has an ability like hardly anyone I've ever seen to get over the line where you're battering at the line. He's the guy you want to give the ball to. He's the one that's actually going to get that last meter over and get the score. So I could see him producing a really big moment for Ireland this year. You've also got the likes of Ryan Baird, who has kind of been playing more at 6 than in the second row this year. Ronan Kelleher, at the moment, he is an injury worry, so young Tom Stewart has been called up from Ulster. Stewart has been in great form for them this year. The only thing I would mention about him, well, two things, like positive and the negative. Positive is he has an eye for a try, kind of similar to Dan Sheehan. And the negative, though, is discipline. He can be a bit of a yellow card magnet and a penalty magnet as well. So hopefully he, if he gets on, he has a positive impact. Kieran Prendergast then has been in great form for Connacht this year too. So there's lots of young players in the forwards that could come in and force themselves into the reckoning for the Rugby World Cup. Into the backs then, we got Aki there with no Henshaw. Maybe he's going to be the starter at 12. We're going to have to see what happens there. Keith Earls is back in the squad as well. Jameson Gibson Park. Mac Hansen seems like a fixture, even though he still hasn't broken double digits for caps. Hugo Keenan, solid as ever, but also he's adding tries to his game as well. Jordan Larmour back to his stepping best, forced his way back into the team. Stuart McCluskey has been in fantastic form for Ulster. Ulster, generally form fell off a cliff for about the last month or so, just bounced back there against the Stormers. But yeah, McCluskey, he's not just a big lump. He can step, he can offload. So seeing him at 12 would be nice as well. Speaking of 12s, you got Jamie Osborne there, who potentially could make a debut. He's a real stepper as well. They're kind of similar mold to maybe Gordon Darcy there. So then you've also got Gary Ringrose, who's in the form of his life coming into this. Sexton, who is, as I said, potentially a worry at 10. You got Jacob Stockdale, who I guess it's just he's got some credit in the bank, because I wouldn't have said that he would get into this team on form. If I was picking an Ulster a back three player on form, I'd probably go for Balakoon over him. But I think, Andy Farrell has faith in him that they can get him back confident and playing as well. So we'll see what happens there. You've also got Ross Byrne, who's been playing most of the minutes at 10 for Leinster rather than Sexton, and Jack Crowley from Munster, who's shown that he's no fear of coming in on the big stage and, producing as well. In terms of, where are the team and what are they looking for? So they're number one ranked in the world. They've already said they don't care about that. If they were to win the tournament and as a byproduct of that to stay at world number one, well, that's fine. But really, I think they're out to they see it as a good chance to win the trophy this year and set themselves up in good form for that Rugby World Cup later on in the year. The Johnny Sexton, injury situation is going to be interesting. And then between Byrne and Crowley, how many minutes are they going to see on the field? We've obviously got, as well, Joey Carberry was left out of the squad. And, he actually played really well for Munster at the weekend there. So we'll see, does he get a call up later on if one of those three are ruled out. We've also got an undercurrent of, there's talk of Bundy Aki maybe leaving Connacht as well. Is that going to, upset his preparation for the tournament? And then also Jacob Stockdale's form, if he's going to be, part of the team, and can they get him back in form to produce on the wing? At the moment, I think maybe it's Hansen and Lowe are like the wingers, the starting wingers, I think, for Ireland. But, the likes of O'Brien and Stockdale are certainly can do a job there. But you would rather see, I think, Lowe and Hansen, at least on current form, starting. On to then France. So coach Fabien Galtier, captain is Anton Dupont. That guy is just crazy skillful. If there was anyone that I'd want to take from another team, even though Jameson Gibson Park is amazing, I'd love to have Dupont in there as well, and have, Gibson Park to come off the bench. That would be my ideal for nines. World ranking is second, could potentially overtake Ireland through the tournament though. Last year, Grand Slam winners, the last five, fourth, second, and winners. So if they're doubling up again this year, it will be another W for them. Odds 7-2 to win. fixtures, starting out with Italy away, which, given that they've picked a lot of players with not too many caps, could be a decent thing for them. Then Ireland away, big game, but I don't think Dublin holds the fear for France coming over or going over there that the reverse fixture holds for Ireland. I think France are fairly comfortable going to Dublin and feeling like, confident that they have a decent chance of winning. So that's going to be a massive game. Then home to Scotland, away to England. Not as confident, I'd say, in Twickenham on their travels, and then home to Wales to finish. So, you can see like there are lots of games in there that could be, as people say, like tournament deciders, but we'll see how they go really in those first three games. If they're still in it, if they're 3 from 3 after that, you could see them producing something big at Twickenham, and then home to Wales for back-to-back Grand Slams. Then that would be a massive night for them. Into the squad then, you got the likes of Aldry, Tatonia, Boy, Kroos, Jalonch. Marchand has been in amazing form for Toulouse. Like, that guy's a turnover machine. You got Olivon there as well. Willemse, no Wokey for them this year in the second row, so that could be big shoes to fill there. But then you got lots of players who are either uncapped or on like 1 or 2 caps as well, that potentially could come in and just light up the tournament and get themselves into that home World Cup. Like, everyone there that is in that squad is going to want to be there for that. So nobody's going to want to soil their copybook, but they're also all going to be raring to go. And it looks like that they want to build depth and get some of these players onto more caps by the World Cup. Like, if they can get a lot of those players that are on like below 10 caps or so up to 8 to 15 caps or wherever by the World Cup, they'll be very happy. Into the backs then, you've got the likes of Dupont there, amazing player. Gael Ficou as well has been in decent form for Racing. Ntamak running the show from 10 as well. Damien Penaud, got Ramos as well from Toulouse. But then you got all these players who are uncapped coming in, like Bordeaux have been, they were in decent form, and that's why you're seeing like the likes of Burros in there. You've also got Lagaric for Racing 92, who looks like a decent prospect at 9 as well. So maybe Dupont doesn't have to, play every minute of every game for them to win. But yeah, looking at the squad, it looks like there definitely is an aim to build depth in the squad and to find, just a few more players. It doesn't have to be every one of these players. Just a few more players to add to that Rugby World Cup squad would make a hell of a difference for them. But that doesn't mean that they're throwing the tournament away. Like, in terms of how they're looking coming into this, like the unbeaten for the entirety of last year, and only the fact that their summer tour was in Japan, which meant that they couldn't pick up any ranking points because of the difference between the teams. They might have been the team that finished the year as world number 1. So they're really coming into this on some great form. Grand Slam winners last year as well. they'll have no fear, and they're going to want to get that back-to-back Grand Slam. They do have the distraction of Bernard Laporte and the whole thing, to do with arrests and corruption and stuff like that, to do with the Rugby World Cup and stuff. So that's not a great background for them to have to the tournament. It is a Rugby World Cup year this year, so they're going to want to light up this tournament again and go into that Rugby World Cup in as best shape as they can. Okay, so that's the end of our look at this year's Six Nations. As I said, I will be, doing a preview of this weekend's games as well later on in the week. But let me know how your team are looking coming into the tournament and where you expect them to finish.